All right, so have you ever just wanted to ditch the mouse, open a terminal and build something awesome in the cloud?
I know what you mean.
Well, today we're going to be your guides to doing just that.
Yeah.
We're taking a deep dive into the world of Azure virtual machines
Yeah.
using the super efficient Azure command line interface.
Exactly.
No clicking buttons here.
We're all about efficiency today.
Yeah,
Think of the Azure CLI as your secret weapon for speed and automation.
love it.
We're going to be breaking down a Microsoft Learn Quick Start guide on launching a Windows Server 2022 VM.
Okay.
And trust me, once you go CLI, you might never go back.
So this guide jumps right in, no time wasted.
Right.
First things first, creating a resource group.
Okay.
For anyone new to this, imagine it like creating a dedicated folder on your computer.
Right.
But instead of storing files,
Yeah.
it holds all the different pieces of your virtual machine.
It's all about organization and easy management.
Right.
The guide gives you the exact command
Okay.
as group create,
Okay.
and even walks you through the parameters so you can name it, choose its location.
Right.
It's like a blueprint for your Azure playground.
And speaking of blueprints, did you know these commands can actually be integrated into scripts?
Oh, yeah.
So if you wanted to build out, say, a testing environment with multiple identical virtual machines,
Right.
you could automate the whole process.
Exactly.
That's pretty powerful stuff.
Absolutely. That's the beauty of infrastructure as code.
Wow.
But for now, let's focus on getting that first VM up and running.
Okay.
The guide then introduces the asvm create command.
Okay, so this is where the magic happens, right?
This is-
But before we get too excited,
Yeah.
I noticed they highlight a really important security best practice here.
Okay.
Instead of typing your admin password directly in the command line,
Right.
which, let's face it, can feel a bit like shouting it from the rooftops.
A big security no-no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The guide recommends using the admin password parameter instead.
Right.
So you can keep that password under wraps while still enjoying the speed and efficiency of the CLI.
Exactly.
What do you think about that?
It's a great example of how security doesn't have to come at the expense of convenience.
Right.
The guide does a good job subtly emphasizing that.
Now, I know we're all about speed here,
Yeah.
but the guide cleverly slips in a reminder about something we should always keep in mind.
What's that?
Cost optimization.
Oh, yeah. It's easy to get caught up in the excitement of spinning up virtual machines.
Right.
But different configurations come with different price tags.
Right.
The guide doesn't dwell on it here,
Right.
but as you become a more seasoned Azure user,
Yeah.
you'll definitely want to pay attention to those details.
Of course.
Consider it a friendly heads up from our guide.
Okay, so we've tackled resource groups, spun up our virtual machine securely, and we've even got cost on the brain.
We're doing good.
What's next in our Azure adventure? So we've got this shiny new Windows VM just kind of sitting out there waiting for us to do something with it.
Who's ready to go?
And being the super helpful guide that it is, this Microsoft document
Yeah.
walks us through installing a web server.
And not just any web server.
No.
We're talking the go-to for hosting web applications on Windows servers.
Right.
Think of it like this. We've built the house.
Okay.
Now it's time to, set up shop, make it our own, you know?
Okay, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
And to make sure the world can see our masterpiece,
Yes.
the guide then shows us how to open up port 80.
Yes.
Now,
Key step.
I have a feeling
Yeah.
you might have some thoughts on this.
You know me too. Well, this is where things get really interesting from a security perspective.
Right.
Remember that analogy of setting up shop?
Yeah.
Well, opening a port is kind of like opening the front door to your shop.
Right.
You're making it accessible,
Right.
but also potentially vulnerable.
It's a bit like leaving a welcome mat out for the entire internet, right?
Yeah, kind of like that.
How do we make sure we're not inviting any unwanted guest into our perfectly crafted Azure world?
That's the million-dollar question. And it's something our guide subtly hints at.
Okay.
Well, they show you how to open the port to make your web server publicly accessible.
Yeah.
They emphasize the importance of implementing appropriate security measures.
Okay.
We're talking about firewalls, network security groups, and a whole host of best practices that you'll want to explore further.
Wow. So it's kind of like they're giving you the keys to the car, but also reminding you there are rules of the road.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it.
So they're not going to hold your hand through every step,
Right.
but they're definitely making sure that you are aware of the responsibility that comes with this.
It's all about empowering you to learn and grow at your own pace.
Okay, I'm starting to see why they call this a quick start guide.
Right.
They give you just enough to get things up and running,
Exactly.
but also kind of nudge you towards those essential next steps.
Consider it a gentle push in the right direction.
Yeah, like, okay, we've given you the power, now use it responsibly.
Exactly. And speaking of responsibility, remember how we talked about cleaning up after ourselves?
Oh, yeah, the digital cleanup crew.
Well, the guide wraps up with a simple,
Okay.
yet powerful command to delete your entire resource group.
Poof, gone in a flash.
Just like that.
So not only have we learned how to build,
Yeah.
we've also learned how to destroy responsibly.
It's like having a self-destruct button for your cloud experiment.
Exactly. It's like magic,
Right.
but with a keyboard.
There's something very satisfying about that, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But did you notice how they almost snuck that command in there without making a big deal about it?
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
It speaks to the intended audience for this guide.
Okay.
They assume a certain level of comfort with the command line.
Right.
They're giving you the building blocks and trusting you to put them together.
Which is where our job comes in.
Exactly.
We're here to unpack those nuances and make sure everyone listening feels empowered to explore the world of Azure.
We're your guides on this journey.
So we've covered a lot of ground here.
We really have.
We've tackled resource groups, spun up a secure Windows VM,
Right.
learned a bit about cost optimization.
Yeah, keeping an eye on the budget.
Always a good idea, right?
Always.
Opened up the internet door responsibly, of course.
Of course. Security first.
And even mastered the art of digital vanishing acts,
We've become quite the Azure illusionists, haven't we?
making those VMs disappear.
Poof.
Exactly.
It's like magic.
But with a keyboard.
Exactly.
And we did it all through the power of the command line.
It's amazing how much you can accomplish with just a few well-crafted commands, isn't it?
It really is like learning a secret language that unlocks all these possibilities.
Absolutely.
But speaking of possibilities, this entire guide focused on Windows.
Right. Windows Server 2022, to be precise.
What if our listeners are curious about Linux?
Linux,
Yeah.
a whole other world. While the core concepts translate beautifully,
Yeah.
diving into Linux VMs in Azure opens up a whole other realm of options and considerations.
Okay, so what are like the key differences there?
Well, for starters, instead of using PowerShell for tasks like installing web servers, you'd likely be working with bash scripts or other Linux native tools.
Okay.
It's a bit like switching from a screwdriver to a wrench. They both get the job done,
Right.
but they each have their own feel and purpose.
And I imagine the choice of Linux distribution adds another layer of intrigue, right?
Absolutely. Ubuntu, CentOS, Debian, just a few flavors in the vast world of Linux,
Wow, so many choices.
each with its own strengths and quirks within the Azure ecosystem.
So it's not just about learning different commands, it's like immersing yourself in a whole new world.
Precisely a whole new world of operating systems, tools, and philosophies.
It's about finding the perfect Linux environment to match your specific needs and workflows.
Exactly.
So for our listeners who are up for the challenge,
Feeling adventurous?
yeah, fire up that Azure CLI.
Embrace the command line.
See what you can create.
The possibilities are practically limitless.
We've had a blast taking this deep dive with you today.
It's been a pleasure exploring the command line with you.
Until next time, happy exploring.